Hello, listeners. Today we have our second guest on the podcast, which is very exciting. We have with us Toni Rudd, who is a registered dietitian who specializes in helping people stop binge eating and move away from the cycle of dieting. She helps people heal their relationships with food, move away from the all or nothing thinking, and ultimately find a more balanced approach to health. Toni, would you agree with me?
Yep, that's exactly what I do.
Great. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. We're both very excited to have you here, aren't we, Katie?
Yeah, it's been looking forward to this all week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to being here with you today.
Do you know what I'm particularly excited about is because you come at this from a slightly different approach to us. You come at it from more of a nutrition perspective, whereas my training is like psychotherapy and Katie's is coaching. And we also have a lived experience. So we come from that angle, whereas I'll speak for myself from the nutrition side of it. My understanding and knowledge is more limited. So I'm excited for you to bring that to our listeners.
Yeah, I think the nutrition side is very interesting, especially when it comes to binge eating. It's obviously a lot of psychological thinking, but it's the psychological part around food it gets me like really excited because that's what I feel passionate about. And like you said, I'm not a therapist, so I have limits on where I can work around with people. But the nutrition side, yeah, it's a very interesting place to work in.
So could you elaborate for us what your role is? Like at what point someone is going to come and work with you and the way in which you do work with people? Because as Becca was saying, it's very different to a coaching relationship and a psychotherapy relationship.
Yeah, I always say if people find food quite stressful, even like thinking about what to eat, or they're stuck in kind of a restrict binge cycle where they're restricting all day and then they're uncontrollably binging at nighttime or at the weekend and it's starting again on Monday or whatever the next day. When people are stuck in them cycles, I think it's a really good place to see a dietitian. And I do think a dietitian and a therapist, for some people, they need both of them at the same time because the psychological side is very entrenched in diet rules and fear of weight gain, and the perfectionistic side of things that actually we do work quite well together. And sometimes I recommend that, okay, see me every other week. And then in between our sessions, there's a therapist check-in. So once a week, particularly at the start of someone's journey to binge-free and let's say recovery, I think more frequent check-ins with someone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be me weekly, but like maybe like a dietitian and a therapist alternating can be really beneficial for a lot of people, I find.
Yeah, that additional layer of support when you're starting to untangle something that, imagine for a lot of people, and I even have it with clients myself, don't quite realize what they're getting themselves in for. It's like, I just want to not binge. And then you start working with someone and everything starts to slowly unravel and you realize how tangled you are.
Yeah, it's very entangled, isn't it? Like, yeah.
And that is such a process to try and do. I mean, on your own, let alone with just one source of help.
Yeah, and I think that kind of multidisciplinary input is really beneficial for a lot of people. And a lot of people can get confused on the different roles, but I think working together, and if the dietitian and the therapist can communicate in a way together to help support that person, I think it really benefits them.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm curious how you ended up working in binge eating. Was it when you trained as a dietitian? Did you always want to go into binge eating, or did that just happen like organically? How did that come about?
I love people's journeys to what they do, because I do think there was a lot that happened in my past that like led me here, and I think it's all very interesting. So the first thing I remember being a child, my mum was a Weight Watchers coach. So I used to go to Weight Watchers meetings with her more for childcare reasons than my mum kind of dragging me along with her, which a lot of people do experience, and then a lot of people tell me that they experienced. But for me, I kind of went to them. I used to run around. I used to like talk to people, and I was kind of exposed to that kind of chat. I don't know if you've ever went to a Weight Watchers meeting, but you get weighed in front. You kind of go in, you get in a queue, you get weighed, and then it's kind of like, oh, what happened this week? Your weight's gone up. Oh, well done. You've done so well. Your weight's gone down. So that really kind of diet culture chat was very exposed to me from a younger age. And I would say all the women in my family all went to my mom's meetings. So it was very much like you said earlier, like I was kind of tangled in chat from a young age. And then fast forward to when I was a teenager, I become a dancer. Again, dance. I went to dance school, and that was a very exposure diet culture. Again, a lot of my friends really turned against food and did probably develop like disordered eating and eating disordered type of habits. And I remember my dance teachers like commenting on our bodies, like don't get your belly out unless you've got a six pack, or the horrible thing was corned beef legs. Like they used to say, don't get your corned beef legs out. And we were 16 to 18-year-old girls, mainly girls. There were some boys. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'm not enjoying. I used to love dancing, and that really took the passion out of it. For me, so I quit. And then that was the kind of point where, okay, I always wanted to be a dancer, so what do I do now? And my mum went to university around that stage for her. She went to do social work, and she brought a load of leaflets home, and one of them was dietetics. And I was pulled towards it because of my experience at dance college. I thought I want to help people that have eating disorders. That was my first thought. And then when I was training, I didn't go into that straight away. I actually went into supporting people with diabetes and weight management. So I saw the kind of the diet, the kind of, what's the word? Like I was the dietitian that was telling people that they need to lose weight, 5 to 10% weight loss. They need to restrict their food. They need to eat less, move more. And I was just finding that was not really satisfying, and I wasn't really helping people. I felt like I wasn't really helping people because people were coming back. They hadn't changed their behaviors. They were still struggling, and I was seeing that kind of binge restrict cycle at that point. And then I kind of then I'm not going to. I didn't really mention that I do have my own lived experience with. I mean, having a body in this day and age is hard enough. Throughout my 20s, I was in the like restrict binge cycle myself. So I think there's a lot of kind of life events for me that's kind of brought me and why I feel so passionate about helping people move away from dieting.
Well, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so fascinating. Having done dancing as well as a teenager, I'd never really thought of that as part of my history and a role it might have played in some of my own experiences. But you just mentioning that made me realize, it's can be quite a toxic environment, can't it, for like body image and diet culture.
And I find it interesting that there was that part of you that actually walked away from that at such a young age. That's such a vulnerable time. It's amazing that you weren't like fully absorbed and took that all on board. You were like, actually, this doesn't feel right. This isn't right for me. I need to walk away from there.
And I remember feeling quite strong about that. And having quite strong feelings that I remember saying they're trying to make me to be someone I'm not. And that was because the constant pressure to lose weight in that kind of world was so strong.
Wow.
I'm really interested when you said you went into like weight management. Obviously, that can be seen as like the flip side of the coin of what the work we do, right? At the time, did you go into that kind of with the understanding that you have of binge eating now and the approach that you have now, with the idea of, I want to enter that world and try and help people from a different perspective? Or did you enter it from quite a diet culture place at the time, would you say?
That's a really interesting question. So when we were training to be a dietitian, so when I was looking at these leaflets to be a dietitian, it said that there was eating disorder, like modules that you'll learn a little bit about eating disorders within part of the year, one of the years. And when I started university, they actually took that out. Throughout university, I ended up doing 5 years. I didn't have any eating disorder training, and there was no non-diet approach, no intuitive eating. And I would say a lot of it was weight centric. So was a lot of focus on people need to reduce their weight. 5 to 10% weight loss is proven to have benefits. So I think I got absorbed into weight centric world of dietetics and being a dietitian, and which is why I thought I was helping people when I started that role. But yeah, like I said, I quite quickly started to realize that I wasn't, and I wasn't really feeling satisfied that I was helping people. Like I didn't really feel satisfied from the job. And I think at that time I was having my own kind of relationship with food, low carb all week and then binge eating on carbs on the weekend was my cycle. And I decided to do my own reading and learning outside of work. And I remember one of the first books I read was Just Eat It, Dora Thomas.
Yeah.
And listening to podcasts. And that's when I had to do my own training and own learning in the non-diet space.
Did you feel quite isolated in that? Because you're really going against the tide, I imagine, especially in that industry that you're in, going against what you're telling people to do every day.
Yeah. And I felt like a bit of a fraud because I was telling people they need to lose weight and basically restrict. And part of the weight management role, I was prescribing like the very low calorie diets where people replace their meals with shakes. And yes, they're effective if you do it and if you can stick to it. But then it's what happens after. And I remember there was one patient in particular that came to me that really showed this binge restrict cycle. And she was very open with me that she had binge eating behaviors. And I think that was a person that I always remember in my mind, that I was like, okay, I related to that as well. And I remember thinking, okay, this person shouldn't restrict food and they need to eat regularly. And I needed to adapt to my advice for that person. But I think in the role that I was working in diabetes, I think in diabetes, when you're newly diagnosed, I think there's a lot of restrictive advice and people do end up getting stuck in kind of a restrict binge cycle.
Yeah.
That's a really good point around diabetes from some of the advice I've seen. I always imagine it's really tricky to work with someone from a nutritional perspective with diabetes if they also have disordered eating habits. And it's, I think, so easy for that to happen because some of the guidance they're given. And obviously I'm not a dietitian, but I imagine that's a really difficult place to support someone in. You've got to be really careful what changes you make because you're trying to balance the psychological side of it and the physical as well, much more than if someone who doesn't have diabetes.
Yeah. And the diabetes nurses, there's a lot, in my experience as well, there's a lot of diabetes nurses that will just give out really general advice about nutrition. And I understand that in the NHS, there's it depends on where you live and the support you get. And there's loads of funding issues. And where I worked in diabetes, there was a massive funding for diabetes because it was Bradford, if you've heard of it. It was high South Asian communities and high rates of diabetes there. So I think we had 16 dietitians in our team. It was a huge team. But some places they don't have that and you don't get access to a dietitian when you see them. So the nurses give out really general advice, which I think can be harmful if you have disordered eating habits already. So yeah, it's like a fine line.
So what is your approach now then? So obviously we've talked a bit about like, your background and weight management and all of that kind of like restrictive side of it, calorie counting, weight loss. You've done a complete U-turn. So if say a client comes to you now and they say that they're experiencing binge eating, where do you start with that client from a dietitian perspective?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I think a lot of people, that's what a lot of people ask me when they first start, like, what do you actually do?
Yeah, because I think I would just expect you to like give me a meal plan and then
That's what you think of, right?
Yeah,
When it comes to
He's going to
dietitians.
give me a meal plan and then off I go. That's what
then-
my brain would think.
if I had a pound for any of the time, someone said, and I think dietitians do get put into this box where they'll just dish out a meal plan and tell me what to eat. And exactly when I worked as the diabetes dietitian, like they'd just come to me and go, just tell me what to eat and what not to eat, and then that's fine, I'll just follow it. Whereas meal plans are probably something that I very rarely do, especially now that I work privately and with people in this area. Meal plans aren't something that I just go to. And I think meal plans can be helpful for some people, but I think they can be quite rigid. And and I want people to move away from the rigid thinking around food. So if I do a meal plan, it's not like Monday eat this, Tuesday eat this. It's more, here are some ideas for breakfast, here are some ideas for lunch, here are some ideas, so that it promotes that more flexibility.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love starting with people. I follow an approach called RAVES. I don't know if you've heard of that. So RAVES is an approach from an Australian dietitian. It means regularity, adequacy, variety, spontaneously, and eating socially and eating spontaneously. I really like this as a start point, because I think obviously the end goal is moving towards intuitive eating. But I think for someone who's stuck in diet culture and dieting and rules, like like intuitive eating, basically what it is eating what you want when you want. We're in a really bubbly picture over here. I think if you try and eat what you want when you want, it can feel like a diet for a lot of people to begin with. So I think the RAVES approach gives some sort of structure. So the regularity and adequacy is normally where I start with a lot of people. And a lot of the time I am telling people to eat more now than I am to eat less. So I do think a lot of people do under eat carbohydrates, and then they tend to binge on it, and helping them recognize that yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Something that
Was mine. Carbs were my thing.
Yeah, low carb. God, I remember eating eggs for breakfast and then just in the car on the way home going around McDonald's and getting a burger. And I share that because if you relate to that, I always just want to make people feel less shame around it. I think binge eating has a lot of shame. So yeah, the regularity and adequacy, and most of the time I'm making a little bit more of a balance of meals. I have someone at the minute that eats a lot more vegetables and very little carbs. So we're trying to like reduce the vegetables and have more carbohydrate and starchy food. So it's a balancing act a little bit.
Yeah. I've never heard of that model, Raves. I really like it. I like things like that because it's easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
With the acronym. But what I was wondering is, as you were explaining that, it intersects with some of the stuff we spoke about in our previous episodes around intuitive eating and how people can approach intuitive eating like it's a set of rules, or they want it to be a set of rules that just tells them how to do things. And for someone who's perfectionistic, like me and Katie both, will hold our hands up and say we feel like we're recovering perfectionists. Yeah, all three of us, great. Intuitive eating can be quite scary because it's more like experimental. There isn't like this rule book to follow. And what you're describing with raves also feels a little bit like that. It's more about people experimenting with what is the right adequacy of food for them. And do you come against people like finding that difficult because they have a perfectionist in them and they want like that rule book given to them of what they should do? And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think again with the regularity and adequacy, okay, eating regularly I think it does give a bit of structure and a bit of guidance, which helps them at times, especially at the beginning of their journey, being told to, okay, eat three meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks a day. It gives a structure and a guidance. But then when the adequacy in terms of making sure that they're eating enough food for them, yeah, I find that can take a little bit of time, because then a lot of thoughts come up on, okay, how much is actually a portion of food? And a lot of the time my answer to that is even though there's guidance on food portions, what works for you, we need to figure out what works for you in terms of a portion. And I always say some days you'll want 2 slices of bread, some days you'll want maybe 1, or maybe you might want 3. So like the portion sizes can differ, especially for women. And I talk about women, and we have a monthly cycle that changes the way that we eat, and people experience being more hungry the week before their period. So that week, okay, you might eat more, and that's okay. It's really breaking down perfectionistic and all the rules and all the rigid thinking that they've learned from all these diets over the years.
Yeah, because for me, the perfectionism came up not only in wanting to follow a plan and follow it, but on like how much to eat, when to eat, quantities to eat, types of food that I couldn't eat. And so the idea of doing anything outside of that felt like I couldn't even be in my skin.
Yeah.
I know what I would have been like. I would have come to you and been like, I need you to tell me what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat it, and then I will do it. Because then, and I think that that so speaks volumes for the complete lack of trust that you have for your body, because I didn't trust myself to make decisions around food. And so I needed someone else to make those decisions for me. And I think as well, nutrition, particularly, because I think towards the end of the last few years of struggling with disordered eating, it was very much that clean eating. So that became the place where I put everything into, and it became how I valued myself. I need to eat this particular way because then I'll be healthy. And then I feel like I have a grasp of myself and of my life. And so that's why I think for me, similar to what you were saying, like having some sort of loose plan's not the right word, but just structure to the day with food made me feel like, okay, I've got something here, and it's up to me to then slowly experiment with what foods work where. But I also didn't realize how many rules I had around food. And I imagine you experience that with clients as well. Can't have carbs more than once a day and all this kind of stuff doesn't really come to light until someone like you is, okay, how does this sort of sound? Let's try this. And I think, well, no, I can't do that.
And I think a lot of the time what's really helpful in capturing those thoughts is often I do like a food thought diary. So I'm quite more interested in the thought side more than the food. And obviously I'm checking what they're eating and when they're eating, but also what's coming up in the mind when you are eating these things. And a lot of the time it is a lot of fear around weight and what will happen to weight. I would say that's one of the biggest drives in these types of habits, is that fear of weight gain, particularly, and the body changing. And then like supporting them to think about that think about health so differently to health and weight is what we've been drummed into. The BMI, there's lots of issues with that, focusing on that, but we've been like drummed into our mind that we should focus on that in terms of our health and eat less, move more, all these types of really generic, I would say quite harmful advice that people give out.
What you described there with the thought and food journal. I don't know if either of you are aware of Christopher Fairbairn's program for binge eating. And as part of that, there's self-monitoring as one of the first steps. And that's one of the programs that I used to deliver and work with people on when I worked at BEAT, the Eating Disorder Charity. And I'm curious as to what your experience is like when people do this, because in my experience, especially people who have like perfectionistic tendencies, the idea of doing that can feel really appealing because it's a rule that you can follow. It's a structure and you can do it well. You can fill it in every day and say, look, I did my food journal. Look how good I am, kind of thing. But it can also feel a little bit diety sometimes, like logging your food and tracking your food can tap into that diet mentality. And the other thing that can be difficult, and again, I think even more so if someone's got like perfectionistic tendencies and that's wrapped up in not feeling like good enough or judgment from others, is people being honest in those logs, especially when it comes to the food. The thought side, maybe a little bit more, there's a bit more honesty there, but in terms of actually logging what people have eaten, I've noticed that people can find that difficult because it's vulnerable, right? It's really vulnerable. And you're actually then laying yourself bare of this is what I've eaten and this is how it's impacted me. And I think the perfectionist can not want to do that. It can want to hide that, to put on like a front of everything's okay. So do you come across that challenge with people and like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I would say, again, I always have that conversation with people in terms of on the first session, I always talk about their diet history. And I would say if there's a strong kind of tracking and monitoring history, I maybe wouldn't go straight in with the food and thought diary. I would be like, okay, maybe that might bring up a lot. But also I'll have that conversation. It can be helpful. And obviously for me, it's helpful to see what they are eating and if they're being honest. I've had someone come to me recently and they've had a history of anorexia, which has then gone into binge eating. She was just like, yeah, I'll lie on the food diary. Like, and thank you for telling me that.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, I would rather know that would happen. And so some people, it's not helpful to do a food and thought diary, but some people it is helpful. So I really have to, it's very personalized and how I really see people. So if there is a history of kind of monitoring and tracking things, I would, and if they're honest with me to say, I would struggle. I think I try and take away the shame from it. And I always say, if you do binge, realistically, I'm not really bothered about what you're eating in a binge. I would be just happy if you write, I binged tonight, or like a binge happened and I don't know what. And then we can talk about it rather than writing down all the food. And then that's going to bring up a lot of shame and guilt. So if it feels more comfortable for people to just write binge or a B, if that helps, I think trying to work around it that way to try and reduce the shame around it, because it's really helpful for me as a binge eating dietitian to know how often these binges are happening. And for me, it's not about what you're eating in a binge, it's why it's happening and how often it's coming up.
I like that approach. That feels really personalized. You can adapt it depending on the person. Were you going to say something, Katie? It looked like you were going to say something, so I don't want to...
No, I was just going to say that I would have been the person that would have lied on my food diary. That would have been me. And also probably even about the thoughts, because there was something about writing it down that felt very real, that I was like, no one else needs to see my failures in writing. Thank you. I'll keep it to myself. Just the way that Becca, when you first started talking about it, how perfectionists might thrive on it, my immediate thing was like, that was not me. I would have been the opposite.
No, I mean, they'll thrive on the structure, but
I would have been a part of it. But yeah, it would have ended up being more of a detriment, I think, for me. I've had to do them in the past, but no, so I'm thinking about.
And it's not always a dive. For me, it's not dive into the food and thought diary. It's maybe like the second or even third, fourth session. Like, how would you feel about doing that? And just having an open conversation about it. Like I said, I'm all about reducing shame. There's so much shame in binge eating and their eating habits that sometimes bringing it to light and writing it down can reduce the shame, and sharing it with me and having that conversation can just reduce the shame and reduce that guilt and help you feel less alone in it.
Yeah, because I think until you're probably asked to actually sit and think about what you're thinking about, you're not thinking about it, are you? You're just going about your day, and then you look back at the end of the day and think, I didn't like the way that I ate. I guess as well, it's asking people to be present in the moment and really tap into something they're not used to tapping into, so that you can understand what else is going on.
And I always think that disordered voice, and some people might call it the food police, or some people have a name for that voice that it like tells you shouldn't be eating that, you should be doing this. sometimes it's really helpful down the line to like really, really identify that voice. If it's about food, the food police voice, really identify that voice and start reframing it. And that's quite therapeutic approach, I think, in terms of changing those thoughts and reframing them.
Yeah. I'm wondering, in your experience of working with clients who may have very rigid rules and they're restrictive and that's driving the binge eating, where are you seeing the influence like that has led to that voice developing? Do you go into that with clients, or is that more into like therapist territory here? But do you unpack that of like where they've developed those beliefs from?
I think the first session is always more of a deep dive into kind of how they've got to where they've got. And one of them is discussing their diet history. Okay, so a lot of people, like I said, go to Weight Watchers with their mom as a teenager, and then it's just like diet after diet, and it's a yo-yo effect on their weight. So I would say that dieting has a huge impact on them developing this voice. And if you've gone from different diets, you're getting different rules that are often conflicting. And it's, what do I believe? What do I do now? And they get so stuck in a rut that they just don't know what to do with food. And food is so complicated. Then when you've got this perfectionistic thoughts to eat clean or perfectly track your calories, or it's, a slippery slope into really disordered thoughts and behaviors. I also don't think social media helps. And I think social media really promotes like the perfectionistic like standards of everything. So what I eat in a day videos, some people find them really helpful because they think it gives them motivation, like inspiration for meals. But I think deep down we can really compare ourselves to them. And actually, just because they're showing you a photo of a meal, you don't know how much they're actually eating. They might not even be eating that meal. They might be eating something else. Or like from what on social media, you really don't know what people are doing behind the camera when the camera's not going on. So a lot of the work that I do is changing algorithm and having an unfollow party. So unfollowing those accounts that actually make you feel rubbish about yourself. Yeah. Whether that's about your body or about food, and following more diverse bodies and different accounts that don't make you feel rubbish. So one of my things with social media is I want to show up without any makeup most of the time. I want to really be honest about what I'm like with things, because I think there's a lot of people that don't do that. And it's all perfect, and everyone looks perfect, and everyone's got perfect kitchens where they do their food, and you're always like, why is my kitchen so rubbish?
My kitchen's too small to do videos in.
Honestly, social media just seems to be a place to go to feel worse about parts of your life that you're not even thinking about, like the state of your kitchen. It just adds to the list of things you feel you're not doing.
Yeah.
Becca, were you going to no.
I was going to ask a question, but only because I thought you were going to stop. Go with it.
But my question is slightly different, though. So is yours a tag on to what we're talking about?
My question was, you can tell me if it will disrupt it too much, but my question was around when you said people pick up different rules because they've done different diets, so they pick up different rules. I'm curious, when you are working with a client who's coming to you saying, I've got binge eating, this is what I'm experiencing. Generally, our clients actually quite well informed in terms of nutrition, or is it misguided, like nutritional information they have?
I think it's a mix. I would say some of my clients are very well educated. They have very high jobs in really, I don't know, like places. I don't know what I'm saying, but they're very like high achievers, and they've got really good jobs, and they're very well knowledge. They've been to university, and I would say they do know what food, and they do know the nutritional advice. But I think it's just so detangled with, I think I want to say like fear of weight and fear of what the body image side of it. It's I like people have constantly be told that they should lose weight, and I'm telling them they should eat more. And it's undoing that kind of health health is so much more than weight. Like you're constantly thinking about food, you're obsessed, you've got that all or nothing thinking where you're trying to eat perfectly and then you have one biscuit and fuck it, I've ruined it, I may as well just eat the whole packet now and start again tomorrow. So yeah, and then I have some people that are very entrenched in their thoughts of diet culture and what they should be eating, and they're so confused with what is a portion and what is a portion for them. So yeah, I would say it's a mix of people.
So my question was actually just purely from a place of curiosity. I wonder if, like, with the way that sort of the past 4 or 5 months, probably a bit longer than that, with the kind of shift that's going on with it seeming to be like diet cultures becoming quite loud, and we've got obviously weight loss medications becoming very available. Are you seeing a rise for yourself in like clients coming to you with that added layer of pressure of needing to sort their diet out, so to speak, or that rise in perfectionist eating where people are trying to really zone into eating in a particular way for weight loss? Are you noticing it within your own business?
Yes, I think the whole skinny talk and everyone's saying we're being pulled back into the 90s.
Yes, we are. We're going back to
100%.
that Kate Moss skinny era.
Yeah, when I started working with people 3 years ago, I thought we're doing progress, and then
this is the change. Yeah.
The Ozempic and the GLP-1s, which is a medication I worked with a lot with diabetes. It's a diabetes medication, and now it's being used as a weight loss injection. Yeah, I would say, yeah, of course, anyone who's got a body in this day and age and a female, it's really bloody hard. And I'm not shy to say that I have my own thoughts about. I always find like New Year is a time where we're always like, maybe I should just do this. And then I'm like, no, snap out of it. And I've been out of diet culture for 5 years now, and I still get the thoughts that maybe I should try it. But the issue with the GLP-1s is that it's become so highly available that there's people that wouldn't be prescribed it, using it, and people that don't meet the criteria of, they use a BMI, which isn't something that I like, but a BMI of over 35 with comorbidities, so like having diabetes or hypertension or other things, using them.
Yes.
And I see them on Instagram though. They pop up on my feed.
I know, no matter how hard we try and filter it, it's just, and I think you're exactly right. It's the people who are already in a thin body using it to get even thinner. That's when it's quite difficult.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely flaws in the private side of it and getting them that allows people to get them that shouldn't be able to get them.
Do you find that it feels discouraging at any points for you?
It's definitely a hard area to work in. I find trying to promote non-diet work is hard when the diet culture is so loud at the minute. Come over to this world and eat what you want when you want is not very appealing for people that really want to lose weight. And look, I understand the weight loss and why people really feel like it, but I always say you've constantly tried these things. And it is not working. Actually, a lot of people regain more weight than they lost, and their weight's just going like down and then up and up a bit more and down and up a bit more. Yeah. And it's like a trend going up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it, and I really empathize. And I think doing this work around body image, I also have a body and I feel it too. But yeah, it's really difficult work.
I was wondering, like, it is really difficult, and there's so much information like floating around. Like you say, people pick up all these different things, and yeah, the messaging's very loud. I'm almost wondering, like, from a nutrition perspective, do you ever feel like actually rather than helping people learn things, you're doing the opposite and helping people unlearn things? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly that. All those rules that people have learned from all the dieting, I'm undoing all that learning. And I like that there's a dietitian called Tabitha Farah. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's got a lot of work that she did, blog posts and podcasts, and she talks about rewiring. It's all about rewiring into a neutral state rather than this kind of pull towards weight loss and restriction. We're rewiring, and I've had to do my own work in all this, like you guys have with your lived experience. But I always say these thoughts will still pop up 5, 6, and they'll probably pop up when I'm older, because I think one of the things that we don't get told growing up is that bodies change and we change. Like, we're not meant to look like we are when we're in our 20s, when we're in our 30s and 40s. And there's always going to be that insecurities. We've all got our own insecurities and things that we don't like about ourselves. But instead of that hate and really wanting to change it, can we neutralize it to be a little bit more, okay, I hate this about myself, but I'm just going to make myself comfortable today and not think about it, rather than wearing stuff that feels uncomfortable, for an example. So, yeah.
Yeah. The way you were speaking about that then, it made me think of the perfectionist part of me that would feel like, okay, if I'm going to recover, if I'm going to heal my relationship with food, then the goal is to get to a point where I don't have these thoughts anymore and project that perfectionism onto something else. When really the work was actually, which I'm guessing is what you help people with, is like understanding flexibility and kind of
being okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. Being okay with things not being perfect, and that being the whole point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it makes me so sad when people come to me and say that they have to say no to social events, or they really worry about social events as a food. And in the RAVES approach, that kind of comes. It's not something we work on straight away, because I think to be okay with social events and social eating, you have to be eating regularly and enough food to begin with. If you're restricting all day and then going to these social events, the food noise is going to be so loud.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I like the RAVES approach, is because, okay, we get things in place that will then be more helpful when we start to challenge food rules and eat out socially. But it just makes me so sad that people say no because they're so worried about getting off the plan or eating too many calories or whatever the thought is about social events. It makes me so sad, because food is meant to be part of that, like, connection with other people. I find it such a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess the traditional view of a dietitian, like we said earlier, is like you go to them, they give you the perfect diet, perfect in quotation mark, diet to follow. It's all really structured. And I guess what you're doing is almost helping people see that an imperfect diet is actually the most realistic way to navigate life. You can have chocolate cake, you can have a bag of crisps, like those things don't negate other nutritionally dense foods in your diet. Like, you're trying to encourage that, which I guess I'm wondering, like, how is that for you as like a dietitian? Because I imagine people have this expectation of what a dietitian looks like, and you're doing the opposite and saying all these things you think that I'm going to tell you to do, but I'm actually not. Like, how do you navigate that and still, like, that? I don't know. It's just, that's hard.
Yeah, I like being different. I like challenging beauty ideals, and I like challenging food rules. And there's literally no rules about food. There is literally, you don't have to have like oats at breakfast. You could have oats for dinner if you wanted. Like, that, who says that we have to have oats at breakfast or a breakfast at breakfast? I love a breakfast at dinner. That's a great dinner.
I love a sandwich for breakfast.
Yeah,
Like, that's weird.
I did have someone come to me like, I just don't like breakfast food.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
can't eat in the morning. So we looked at having different things. So yeah, that is definitely a thing.
Yeah, I'm not a huge breakfast food person. And if it has, got to be savoury.
Yeah. So yeah, I love challenging the rules, helping people to realize that actually there's a lot more grey when it comes to food. Food isn't just black and white. There is a lot of grey and colour in food that makes it, and food should be more exciting, and you should look forward to what you eat rather than being like, ugh, low carb meals never excited me. And it was always like I was eating really sadly, looking at my food, And then it was, you need some fun in your day when it comes to food, especially at the minute when the world is literally burning in the background. If you can't get joy from food, what else can you do?
I imagine people find it very refreshing to work with you. People probably leave your office, leave a Zoom meeting, maybe, probably more like. It's like their shoulders relaxed, you know? Like,
that's what I was thinking. Like, as you were speaking, I was like, you can see in like the way you carry yourself, how passionate you are about this, how excited it gets you, and how much you really live what it is, the message you're spreading. I think that's really nice, because I think so many people must think of dietitians as like stern, I'm going to tell you off, you know, what you should do and shouldn't do. And you're shedding a whole new light on what like working with a dietitian can look like, and actually how fun and playful and freeing it probably can be. And I just think that's lovely.
Yeah, I think the dietitians have got a bad, and if you've seen a dietitian had a bad experience, which is something I always ask again, if you've ever seen a dietitian before. And a lot of people have, and they've not had a good experience. They've probably been told to lose weight. And I do love what I do. And I try and live what I do through my life. I really try and replicate that. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and having a chat today. I feel like if I wasn't watching the clock, I could just keep talking to you all day, actually.
I would love that. But yeah, we've all got things to do.
Honestly, it's been really lovely to chat to you. Yeah. And I think if anyone is looking for a dietitian, then absolutely go and check out Toni, because it sounds amazing what you do with people.
We will make sure all your details are in the bio, so anyone that wants to have a look at your Instagram, one that's not to be unfollowed, I think people will love that.
Yeah, keep following me. But yeah, thank you. That's really nice, and I hope this chat helps someone. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Oh, is there any one thing you want to like drop to people before we finish? As a dietitian, this is the one piece of nugget of information I'd like you to take away with you.
That's a lot of pressure on one person, Becca.
I know. Well, I like these kind of little takeaways at the end.
Oh, that's a good question. What's the one nugget? You have put me on the spot. I would say that going with the kind of perfectionistic thoughts, that one little biscuit or one little bit of chocolate or one bag of crisps a day isn't going to ruin anything. Stressing about it is only going to fuel the binge.
Love it.
That's a really good takeaway. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot there. I just got excited.
Now she'll never come back, Becca.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. And thank you for listening, everyone, too.
Yes, thank you.